not be charged for this call. This call is from
Pat Hoffman.
an inmate at Airway Heights Correction Center. This call will be recorded and monitored. If you wish to block any future calls of this nature, dial 7 now. To accept this call, press 5 now. To decline this call, hang up. Thank you.
Hello?
Hello, Mr. Hoffman.
Yes, so good to hear you again.
Good to hear your voice as well.
Yes. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I was going to let you know, your wife, I believe, Agnes, informed us that you might have been moved. And is that true? Am I remembering correctly?
Say again?
Did you get moved from one prison to another recently?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I'm at Airway Heights now.
Okay. And I wanted to update the website. I do have you at Airway Heights now. I hope that's a better place than you were before.
Well, you always have trade-offs, and usually the trade-offs don't matter so much, especially when you've got ones in the system that want to inflict punishment where it's not their position to.
Yeah, no, I understand that.
Yeah. But I believe that it's a better thing for me right now. It's at Walla Walla. I always had bad feelings there about the situation and stuff. After they had the woman in the incident come down there and become a prison guard and try to kill me and my dad. And then didn't do anything about it, but let her go home. So.
Wow, what was her motivation? What was her motivation to do that? She just was she a part of?
She was having a romantic affair with the police officer that got killed.
Oh, I see.
And she thought it was her duty, since she was the one that was bedding him then presently, that she should try to revenge him. So she come down and became a guard and tried to get the native population to kill my dad and I.
Wow.
The thing that bothers me the most about it is that she was just as misinformed as anybody else was. She was there close to the thing that went down that night, and she didn't listen, didn't understand that the police had no business there. They had no authority there. We had done nothing wrong, so there was no reason for them to be there on my dad's property, except to do the dirt that they tried to do, which was to try to kill my dad and anybody else that was there. I think that she's become aware of that a little bit now, and but who knows? I've not had any further contact with her over the time that I've been here. I was been in prison. I had talked to her one time in front of my cell in 8 unit at Walla Walla, and that was the only time. After that, I heard here a couple of years ago now with Yvonne Swan that she was friends with her on the Facebook and stuff, and trying to help get Leonard Peltier free from federal prison. And I had informed Yvonne of what had occurred with her and I and Dad back in the beginnings and stuff, and I told her that she should be watchful, because you never know what lies under the surface with ones like that. You just can't tell. So anyway,
well,
I just wanted to touch.
Yep.
Yeah.
I want you to have time to talk about whatever you want to have time to talk about, but I do think, we've been uploading videos of phone calls from you where you cover your story and what happened that night and your role.
Yes.
And I did get one guy reply that I think might be related to one of the gentlemen that it was one individual that died that night, right? There wasn't two, right? It was okay.
Yes,
He left. What was his name again?
Lou Millard was the one that got killed that night.
Okay, I think one of his relatives or possibly his son left a comment,
yes.
and if you like, I can read it to you.
Yes.
I'm not.
Yes.
Okay, and I want to be sensitive to everybody concerned here, but you have spent 31 years in prison,
yes.
so here's what he said,
yes,
and here, and I'll just we're all big boys, and it's not going to be a nice statement, but I want you to hear what he wrote as under one of your videos.
Yes.
Okay, he said, Patrick Hoffman, how dare you plead for your life? You stole everything from me. You stole 32 years from me. Remember whose house you ran to that night? And who did you confess to start with? And who did you confess to start with? The same person that turned you in. Mistreated, you get out. Mistreated, you shall have. And so he sounds still, even after 31 years, to be very bitter. And I guess my question is, there was only one person that died that night. I don't mean the word only, but how can you send two people to prison for one person that dies? I mean, somebody had to be the shooter, and I know from your perspective, you think it could have been friendly fire, but I don't know if you care to respond to that. I don't know if you care to respond to that or not. That's entirely up to you.
We are working on that right now. Agnes has responded to them and told them that she has the paperwork and that this youngster has been misinformed all through the time and needs to know the truth. That his father was a good police officer and he was misled in this, and either I would rather have him think better of his dad than to know everything that I know about him, because there were times when Mr. Millard came to me when I was a bartender and stuff, and we had very long talks about being Indian, about relationships with women and things like that, and I've been like a confessor to a lot of people. When they say something to me, that's as far as it goes. I don't share it with anybody else. There may come a time when I'm asked that if something was said to me, and I will say, yes, we talked about things, but I can't go into that because I have made a promise that it would never go any farther than that, and that's the way things are. But this youngster needs to understand that there was no confession. What we talked about that night was that my dad had died. At least that's what I had thought. When I found out that in the paper they put before me that he had been found alive and picked up and moved to Spokane, that was what I said was good deal. At the same time, the one that raised him up as a father and stuff tried to make out that there were two people asking me questions at the same time. One was about my dad, and one was about Lou Millard. Well, I didn't know that there were officers there until after the shooting was complete and they had left. They had ran off. I ran them off. That's the only time that I seen an officer's uniform. Now, the question needs to be asked, why are they putting on protective shooter's vests? One, an officer that never left the desk for 18 years, had served his time as a patrol officer and was administrative officer for 18 years. Now, all of a sudden, he's going to say no to the police chief who told everyone to stand down from this and not do anything more because they were looking at police brutality and the possibility that if it went any farther, that they could be sued for first-degree premeditated, aggravated, attempted murder of two Native Americans on tribal land. They had to go through with this court and make us find us guilty because it was either us or them. Again, even after the shootout and stuff, we lived through the shootout, and that wasn't good enough for them. They were covering their in conspiracy and in corruption. Now, his dad may or may not have been part and parcel to that, but these are the only two officers that got injured, and they were both wearing shooter's vests. Along with that, there were Wenatchee County SWAT team that showed up there. And after they showed up there, they went home. They told them, don't you bring us into this. And the Chelan County SWAT team dispersed from itself. They were no longer in existence. Because they got to the brunt of it, which was that police officers were doing wrong and they were supporting them. They didn't want nothing to do with that. So there were ones that were suited up that night, ready to go and stuff, and this one ran them off. And they couldn't stand that, and they couldn't stand the fact that they were supporting the ones that were doing a criminal act. And that's why this thing has gone around. Why, if we were guilty of killing somebody, why would the tribal council pay $50,000 to have us convicted in another jurisdiction? When the tribal judge stood on her front lawn and watched the whole thing unfold, and later was asked in court, and under testimony she said this: they asked me to press charges against McGinnis and Hoffman. I said no, because they didn't do anything wrong. The first shots in that incident came from where the police had positioned themselves. She was where she could see who was police and who wasn't.
What was her name? What was the tribal judge's name? Do you recall?
Sheila Cleveland. She's on the reservation now. She was a council member up until this last time now. Last election in June.
Does she support your freedom? Does she try to advocate for you and as far as obtaining your freedom, or has she? No. No, because she, after making that statement, she was told that if she continued down this path, she would turn up missing. I see.
And when Agnes come into my life and started phoning different ones and asking questions and stuff, Sheila Cleveland told Agnes, don't call here again. It's dangerous for me.
Wow. Incredible. That's no way to live a life. I don't know how people go to bed at night knowing that there's an innocent man in prison and that they have eyewitness testimony that can help out, and then just turn their back on that situation. That's just no way to live a life.
You are a good friend, and I value your friendship, and I value your understanding and stuff, and I'm glad that you're of a distance away, that they can't reach out to you, and that means a lot to me. But it also means a lot to me that you are doing what you are doing regardless, even if it was in their own back door, you would still be doing that. I can see that in you, and I value that very highly.
Yeah, well, we just simply want the truth, and we know that our criminal justice system, nobody gets a fair trial nowadays. I mean, it's just, I believe that we've got massive problems with our criminal justice system, and it seems like they want to put people in prison because they make money off of people in prison. So if they can put more people in prison, the more money they can make.
You know that the prison system in every state right now, as it stands, even the federal government prisons, are breaking the Emancipation Proclamation. They are using people in human trafficking for the sake of profit.
Yeah.
And that is slavery, and it's against the law.
Yeah. There is no doubt about that in my mind. That they incarcerate people. The judges and the prosecutors have stock in the prison system, and the more they can keep the prisons full, the more money they make off their stock. And so it's totally a system where, you know, they have an incentive to give longer prison sentences. I mean, it's just insanity. And one of the things I keep going back to in your case, Patrick, and I want you to have time. I don't know how much longer we're going to have, but you know, if one man died that day, I don't understand the reasoning behind putting two men in prison because he wasn't shot with multiple guns, right? I mean, so it's how can they justify putting you and your father in prison when there's one death? I mean, it's either you or your father, or it's friendly fire. It can't be all of you, you know.
Because we were hereditary leaders. We were hereditary chief bloodline, and it was the council was wanting to inaugurate things such as gambling and mining on the reservation, and they couldn't do it. They thought that Dad and I would be against that. Dad and I didn't care one way or the other about that, but we cared that everybody got a fair share of whatever they were doing, which was high grading gold off the reservation, and these council people were also being supplied drugs by FBI agents, and they had them in such a bind that either they had to find us guilty or they faced being found guilty of conspiracy to commit murder on an Indian reservation, and they aren't going to do that if they've got the money and the means and the push to defend against that by putting somebody else in prison. You better believe that somebody else is going to go to prison.
Yeah, you know,
now, they're all.
You're reporting of you're reporting of the federal government running drugs into Indian reservations. It's not the first time I've heard stories like that. We have another FBI whistleblower who was blowing the whistle on the CIA running drugs within communities in America, as well as you know, during the Vietnam War with Air America. And so it's very common to hear these stories where the government is actually the drug dealer. They're the ones who are pushing the drugs into the communities.
Yes. And it's the same old story that they used to use in other countries and stuff, is to go in and destabilize and act like they're the big brother and bring in the cavalry then and oh, we've got to kill this leader because he's abusing the people and this and that, and he's making slaves out of them, and he's holding back their freedom and holding back this and that and stuff, and they end up dead, and then the country is left without a leader and in turmoil and stuff, and they've got what they wanted to do then. They've got their foot in the door, and they're able to pave paradise and turn it into a parking lot.
Yeah.
And that's what they've done year after year after year. And it's not, brother, it's not the whole United States citizenship. There are a select group within the government system that do this, and they do it for the sake of power. And they do it so that they can maintain their power. They have money being put into this little jar and that little jar and stuff, and it goes into the U.S. stock exchange, and it goes into money accounts and stuff. I can tell you that I know for a fact that in the two towers, the loss of the towers in 2011, that or 2001, 9/11, September 11, that this gold that was taken out of our land was at the bottom of that, and I can verify through estimation that there was at least $260 million in bullion, 98% pure, that was in that came.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
It came from our reservation, and it wasn't put in Fort Knox. It was put aside under other auspices and stuff. And when the towers went down, there were guards there until that gold bullion was recovered. After it was recovered, there were no more guards there. So,
wow, we're gonna run out of time, and I've got a commitment. I've got to get my car worked on today.
Have 30 seconds
Believe it or not, but
Yes,
if you want to call back at some point later, and we'll continue. And our prayers are with you, Mr. Hoffman, and I pray that God does work a miracle so you can be reunited with Agnes.
Agnes, thank you. Have a good evening.
Okay, God bless you.
Love and respect to you.
All right, love and
Yes.
respect to you
God
as well.
bless you.
God bless you. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Bye-bye.